a presentation of some of the methodologies before this panel. We are trying to promote it also through those champions to the local level. We definitely also see an importance of our programs to support those local voices being heard at different decision-making rounds. And we are, for our program, also focusing on inviting representatives of such CSOs to different forums, to different workshops, to make sure that their voice is being heard. We also, in our planning, in my project, but also in other projects we're implementing, definitely having dedicated activities to address the most vulnerable, including women, including disabled people, those that are mostly affected by the climate change, but also can be a solution to the climate change adaptation. Finally, specifically in the context of our project, when we're talking about the river basins, transboundary river basins, we are finding that there is a greater need for moving towards basin management. And here we're talking about the establishment of the transboundary associations of basins, transboundary councils that would bring different stakeholders at different levels together, and therefore give them also power to participate and have an impact on the decisions being made.
Thank you very much. And I want to use that as a quick jumping off point for a second question, which is obviously most of the organizations on this panel have kind of similar approaches and are often working in similar areas. So especially given this common focus on transboundary water management, local stakeholder inclusivity, how does GIZ coordinate with other organizations and make sure that all of us are, especially when we're working in the same areas, use our resources most effectively and don't duplicate?
I'll give you 3 points here. The first point, and to make it a little bit more fun, we do start the work at home. First of all, we do in GIZ focus a lot on coordinating our own activities. As you saw through the day-to-day, we have quite a number of different projects in Central Asia. Some of them are bilateral, some of them regional, some of them global. And we do spend a lot of time of coordinating and aligning what we are doing, so we can also be in different discussions, in different meetings, act as one organization, one GIZ. That's definitely our focus. And we also try to approach maybe the circular economy approach in terms of reuse, reduce, recycle. We are trying to use existing institutions already. We're trying to use existing platforms, existing forums, and not to create new ones without necessity, because we felt that it's better to strengthen what there is now and not to create additional ones. Of course, there is a great emphasis and responsibility with the host countries, because you are defining your priorities, you're setting your regional priorities, but also the national ones. And we, as the developing organizations, support your needs and your priorities. And we really need you as well to coordinate different organizations and different donors in terms of how they should work at national level, but also at the regional one. And hence, I'm very, very happy that there was a decision on the regional adaptation strategy taken at the end of the last year. And just now, downstairs, I think my colleagues are talking about how to move with implementation of this. So coordination at the host countries at the national level and regional level is very important for avoiding duplication on the donor side. Final point here is the regional institutions. And in GIZ, we feel that it's very important to invest and further strengthen existing regional institutions. And here I'm talking about 2 particular ones. That's CAREC, of course, and probably more environmental CAREC, but economical one as well. And also the Center for Disaster Risk Reduction. Both are part of this panel and both our proud partners. And I'm very happy to hear as well that these 2 institutions will sign an MOU towards the end of this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll move to Ilhom. Ilhom Gulonjanov, again, here representing ACTED, and it's 25 years of work in northern Tajikistan and also in Kyrgyzstan, who will speak to us about climate change impacts on water community engagement and reducing risks to conflict. Same rules apply.
Yeah, I will try to be brief. Yeah, thank you, Arya, for the question. Also, thanks for organizers for giving this opportunity to tell you about acted activities in this regard. So I won't repeat actually the impact of climate change on the region because many speakers today were mentioning the impact that Central Asia is facing. But though I do want to repeat one of the statements, one of the colleagues from the World Bank who emphasized the importance of engaging communities in climate resilient actions. So this is indeed absolutely that we agree with. And based on acted activities, which acted is present in the region and is, particularly in the Fergana Valley for more than 25 years. So we know well this context and situation, and as you know, the Fergana Valley is highly conflict prone area. So and believe that and we are sure that the tensions that are taking place are around natural resources and mainly water. So why important to engage communities? So because again, to repeat one of the speakers that mentioned today that the communities are on the front line to face the challenges of the climate change. So they're the ones that are already experiencing these challenges on themselves, on their daily life, and also depending on their capacities to cope with these challenges, I think it influences either negatively or positively the peace and stability in the region. So also Sergey mentioned about the basin management. So we all know that Central Asia is kind of one ecosystem, actually. But if you zoom in, we find that actually there are also smaller ecosystems called watersheds where actually the communities live in. So that's why we adopted an approach so-called integrated watershed management, where we try to engage communities in climate resilient actions and also in ecosystem restoration and also DRRs, because they're all interlinked. And the process of switching to basin planning in Central Asian countries actually provides a very good basis to integrate this approach into the, let's say, formal water resources management. So I will give you a bit of more details on that. This approach of integrated watershed management, basically it comprises all the aspects related to not only to water resources, but all the issues that are particular to each watershed as an ecosystem. So there are a few like kind of steps in this approach, but there are two main principles, which are this it should be participatory approach, so involvement of all the stakeholders in the process. And second, it's of course this regional and transboundary cooperation, because we speak about the specific region where the resources are shared between the countries. So the steps are basically we start with stakeholder involvement, when we invite all the stakeholders, key stakeholders, to participate in the implementation of this, let's say, ecosystem rehabilitation activities. And basically, we start with the process starts with a thorough assessment of the context of the ecosystem. So it's kind of screening of the issues in the watershed and identifying the main issues, root causes, and also try to formulate actions to address those issues. So this process includes also the climate risk assessment, but we have also other sectoral assessments, like we assess also agriculture, pasture management, land management, and many other aspects. Sorry, I will be quick. So actually then these actions, these recommendations, they translated into so-called watershed management plan, which then is a kind of 5-year plan, which is also embedded into the is coming part of the river basin plan. So it has the same time horizon. So and basically we try to coordinate the activities and measures which needs to be implemented on national level and which needs to be implemented at local level.
Excellent. As a quick follow-up to this, I know you mentioned as part of the IWM approach, using different innovative technologies to help improve kind of
Yeah.
livelihoods, water management. Could you elaborate on what some of those technologies and methodologies would be?
Yeah, actually, those are, I wouldn't say they're new technologies. It's more like adaptive technology and methods. So it's mostly about water efficiency techniques, and also increasing the efficiency of using available natural resources. So, for instance, because the context of the watershed varies from one into one, so there is no standard approach that you actually, or standard set of practices that you can introduce. So it's really unique to each watershed. So one of the examples that we have, for example, the watershed is Fana watershed, which is shared between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. So the lower part belongs to Tajikistan, which is mostly where the rainfed lands existing. So, and we saw that those lands are not pursued by the communities as a resource. So they think there's no water, so you can't do anything. That's why we elaborated and developed rainfed agriculture methods where they can actually get more profit out the rainfed lands rather than with the conventional practices. And so they grow cereals which are not profitable at all, and also depends on very much on precipitation. So we actually introduced drought-resistant crops which are available in the region, which they didn't use or think of using. So actually, we're bringing in, knowledge and technologies rather than inventing something new. So it's really the aim is to boost replication. So the scale matters. If people see that it's profitable and it's it's doable, so they go for that, and then we actually have an impact on the entire ecosystem, watershed, and also river basin ultimately.
Very clear. The second question is, so this is obviously a very localized approach, working very, very closely with local stakeholders and communities. Traditionally, things have tended to go much more kind of top down, and this is very much a bottom up approach. So things have traditionally tended to go very top down through national governments. How do you manage that relationship with the national government, given that this is very much a bottom up approach?
Well, again, it depends, of course, from country to country. So if we take Tajikistan, for example, where, as I said, they're much more advanced in implementation of switching to basin planning. So they have already 5 river basin management plans, for instance. And the focus of the national process for the moment is so far on basin management. So with the integrated watershed management, we bring the attention to the issues which are on the watershed level, on the lower level. So far they understand the importance, because they understand that if you put together the watershed management plans, you have actually ready basin management plan. So that's why they understand it, and in Tajikistan they have full support. But for the moment, they're more, as I said, they're more focused on basin level. In Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan, so they understand, because they understand that these real issues are really taking place in the watershed level. That's why they're really perceptive and accept what we have been doing. So also correspondingly, they provide the assistance in addressing those issues.
Thank you very much. I need to apologize or maybe give good news to our remaining panelists. I've been informed that we have about 15 minutes left, so I will not be asking you any follow-up questions. But we will now go through your remaining presentations. So next will be Nurlan Panzabekov, who will speak to us on building community resilience, particularly relevance of women and gender dynamics for disasters and climate change.
Добрый день. Прошу прощения, если я немножко нарушаю формат, но я хотел бы использовать презентацию для сегодняшнего рассказа о нашей деятельности. Поставьте, пожалуйста. Нет. Красный полумесяц, там презентация. Вы знаете, да, в каждой стране существует красный полумесяц или красный крест, которых объединяет Международная федерация Общества Красного Креста и Красного полумесяца. Вот сегодня коллега моя Севаль делала презентацию. Ну, наша организация существует с 1937 года. Я являюсь руководителем департамента по чрезвычайным ситуациям. Наша деятельность заключается как в подготовке, так и в реагировании на чрезвычайные ситуации. Вот в настоящее время мы сейчас проводим операции реагирования в нескольких областях, наиболее пострадавших от паводков. Вы нашли презентацию, да? Как поставите, я тогда начну по ней. И там при поддержке Международной Федерации Общества Красного Креста и Красного Полумесяца, компании «Шеврон», также несколько доноров присоединились. Это Coca-Cola, TikTok, InDriver, несколько партнерских национальных обществ. Ну, наша работа в плане подготовки к чрезвычайным ситуациям. Будьте добры, поставьте, пожалуйста, я вот там оставлял презентацию. Sorry? No, I have a presentation. I left here. Yeah. Так, ну, наша работа по-разному может заключаться в плане подготовки. Значит, при поддержке Международной Федерации мы еще в 1996 году начали эту программу подготовки. И можно сказать, что работой именно с населением, особенно сельскими сообществами, мы начали заниматься еще с прошлого века, когда еще, в принципе, вопросы об изменении климата так остро не стояли. Вот и после этого уже, конечно, новые подходы, новые вопросы были учтены при нашей работе дальнейшей. У нас, как сказать, научный подход вот в этом отношении, в плане снижения риска бедствий, мы где-то начали с 2008 года при поддержке различных доноров. Это проекты ДИПЭКа, ДЕВКО, это при поддержке Европейской комиссии. Затем различные проекты, связанные работа в школах и в сельских сообществах при поддержке различных доноров, в лице немецкого Красного Креста, голландского, американского и так далее. Вот, спасибо большое, нашли. Так, ну вот я хотел сказать, показать, это вот наши доноры и ряд проектов, которые мы реализовали в различных частях страны. Ну, конечно, этот объем не очень большой, это все зависит от финансирования, которое у нас имеется. Вот. И сейчас, в настоящее время, мы реализуем проекты в текущем, в настоящее время. Это в области ЖТСУ города Алматы при поддержке Международной Федерации и гуманитарного офиса ЮСАИД, Бюро гуманитарного офиса, Бюро гуманитарной помощи ЮСАИД, а также итальянского Красного Креста в Западно-Казахстанской области. Уже? О. Так, ну работа в школах. Там я пропущу. Школы у нас, вы знаете, да, школьники, то есть их подготовка, реагирование, особенно в сейсмоопасных зонах, это очень важный элемент. Вот мы там проводим обучающие тренинги по подготовке, правилам поведения, оказанию первой помощи. Оснащаем базовым инвентарем, аптечками первой помощи, информационные материалы и соревнования. В каждой школе создаем команды по ЧС из числа учителей, которые затем проводят обучение и в дальнейшем поддерживают это обучение в школах по подготовке навыкам поведения. Так, вот особо хотел обратить внимание, это создание местных комитетов по чрезвычайным ситуациям. Как Сергей говорил, там у вас, наверное, тоже система, наверное, очень похожа. Но то, что мы делаем, это мы проводим тренинги сначала по чрезвычайным ситуациям, затем по системам раннего оповещения, проводим симуляционные учения, обменные визиты при необходимости, оснащение инвентарем и обеспечение материалами. В каждом селе эти села мы выбираем при поддержке местных департаментов по чрезвычайным ситуациям, то есть они нам рекомендуют, и местные власти тоже с ними совместно рекомендуют наиболее уязвимые сельские населенные пункты, в которых мы создаем команды по чрезвычайным ситуациям из 10 человек. Они проходят этот тренинг, в том числе вопросы, касающиеся изменения климата, системы раннего оповещения. проводит оценку уязвимости и потенциала своего населенного пункта, то есть отмечают все риски и преимущества их населенного пункта, то есть места эвакуации и так далее. Разрабатываются планы подготовки и реагирования на чрезвычайные ситуации, затем симуляционные учения с участием местных департаментов ПЧС, отделов ПЧС и реализация мелкомасштабных митигационных проектов. Вот. Эти проекты определяются непосредственно, то есть самими жителями этого сельского населенного пункта. После того, как они пройдут это обучение, они понимают, что необходимо сделать в их населенном пункте, чтобы снизить, уменьшить воздействие будущих возможных бедствий. Так, ну вот это вот материалы оборудования, которые мы закупаем. Обычно это помпа-генератор, фонари, рации, дождевики там и так далее, мегафоны. Вот, и затем вот эти вот непосредственно практические учения, на которых они все это заводят, смотрят, то есть это оборудование непосредственно на практике используют. Вот то, что касается митигационных проектов. Да-да-да, ага, все. Они могут быть разные. То есть это и расчистка русел реки, например, да, от там заросших, там расширение этих каналов, отсыпка небольшой дамбы. В частности, вот, вот в нижнем левом углу это было новшество Алматинской области. Они предложили сами местные жители сделать пескоуловитель. То есть это канава, арык, вот, который течет, и вот этот песок постоянно его забивает. После этого разливается на дороге вода, потом замерзает. Это вот особенно в зимний период, когда дожди проходят там или тает снег. Вот они сделали такой, предложили такой проект, то есть это песок, яма, которая улавливает этот мусор, песок, и вот нужно будет потом просто только почистить и все. После этого все в порядке. Вот, ну вкратце вот так быстро, если это. Спасибо.
All right, thank you very much, Nurlan. Apologies for the short timing and technical difficulties. Next up, we'll have Zarangas Makhmudova, who will speak to us on WFP's approach to building resilient communities and improving risk assessment practices in both Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan.
Thanks a ton. For me, it's a privilege being here. And as a matter of fact, our journey started quite similar to the previous presenter. We've been very much dwelling or working on a community level, striving to build the resilience, striving to help the communities cope with the aftermath of disasters on one hand. On the other hand, providing them with the necessary tools to adapt to ever-changing climate. However, following the GISS approach, we realized that for us to be more successful and more meaningful and develop better and more solid adaptive and protective measures, and to fine-tune our activities with the principles and notions of shock responsive social protection, we decided that it would be quite important to help collect and generate the necessary evidence for a rather meaningful decision-making on all the levels, on the level of the national government, on the level of associations, subnational governments, certain private sector related associations or APEC structures, and of course, continue working with the communities. So to this end, I personally was lucky enough to be working with a brilliant team of professionals, both in Kyrgyz and Tajik WFP country office, as well as, well, basically, and the colleague from the Ministry of Emergency Situations from Kyrgyz Republic. They've been serving for us as an inspiration, as a drive to succeed. So in a nutshell, trying to actually summarize the work of the last 2 years, we looked at the possibility of adapting and downscaling the globally renowned methodologies for climate risk assessment and for disaster risk assessment. And I see Ari knocking on the wood. Okay, good. Wonderful. Oh, thank you. I don't think it will be necessary though. So, and it proved to be, with quite a serious engagement and involvement of the ministry, we've been able to develop a very localized, informed methodology-based risk assessment maps for Suzak district. That was the work that we've been doing in Kyrgyzstan. However, it seemed to be quite relevant and quite a good tool that colleagues in WFP in Tajikistan had decided to integrate. So and also to provide certain opportunities to the farming or information to the farming communities in regards for them to make their production decisions through the last mile climate service approach. In WP, we are looking at the risk from the comprehensive perspective. So we are measuring the risk, analyzing the risk on a local level, both disaster and the climate risk. In the meantime, we are also facilitating to develop the corresponding protective mechanisms and systems at national levels. And we understand that there is quite a notion of the residual risk, which is still there, which someone needs to take into account, take into consideration, and which actually very much plays or aggravates the vulnerability of the communities and various sectors of economy. So for us, it was quite an important pilot over the last year and a half to try out the residual risk management through parametric meso-level index insurance. And as a matter of fact, this year, we are planning to integrate the micro-level parametric insurance products in both countries, in Kyrgyzstan and in Tajikistan, on the basis of the experience that we had accumulated during the pilot in Kyrgyzstan. So that's basically it. I understand that it's quite difficult to squeeze everything into the 5 minutes time frame. I still have 1 more minute. Right. Wonderful. So we are working quite actively within the residual risk management activities, and one of the pilots that potentially is worth mentioning is also the very practical solution that was developed with the Ministry of Emergency Situations in the Kyrgyz Republic, and we do hope that we'll be able to replicate the experience in Tajikistan within the regional comprehensive risk management activity that we are launching. And it was related to a prepositioning or anticipatory action, very practical mechanism that was aimed at capturing the risk or helping the community members, the most vulnerable community members, to cope better with the risks related to the extended winter and inability to use pastures and inability to provide a certain fodder base for their animals. We do understand that from climatic perspective, it's a somewhat dubious decision to be proactively working in the livestock sector. However, we do understand that in most of the rural communities, most of the most vulnerable groups or members of those communities are relying quite substantially on livestock as their core source of income.
Thank you very much, Sarah. My notebook. For our final presentation, we have S.A. Satayev from the Geoinformation Systems Division, Department of Forecasting of Emergency Situations for the Ministry of Emergency Situations in the Kyrgyz Republic.
Здравствуйте, уважаемые делегаты, участники конференции. Вначале я хотел бы поблагодарить от имени Министерства чрезвычайной ситуации Кыргызской Республики организаторов за приглашение на Центральноазиатскую конференцию по вопросам изменения климата, которая проходит в городе Алматы, Республики Казахстан. Тема сегодняшней моей презентации – мониторинг опасных природных процессов в Кыргызской Республике. Мое выступление содержит из 3 частей. Первая – об опасных природных процессах на территории республики и о создании единой системы комплексного мониторинга, прогнозирования чрезвычайных ситуаций. И в-третьих, о полевых исследованиях с применением специальных оборудований и программных обеспечений ГИС. На территории республики, как и в других горных регионах мира, активно развиваются опасные природные процессы. Возникают стихийные бедствия и жизнедеятельность населения связана с риском. И наибольшую угрозу представляют опасные природные процессы, это как землетрясения, оползни, сели, паводки, высокогорные озера, лавины, повышенные уровни грунтовых вод и камнепады. На данном слайде подробно выработан анализ статистики и тенденций изменений чрезвычайных ситуаций, связанных с опасными природными процессами. И по статистике селевые процессы происходят больше, чем другие опасные природные процессы. И исходя из статистики, наиболее подвержены в области активизации опасных природных процессов расположены на юге республики. На слайде показаны карта областей, плотностью распределения опасных природных процессов на основе данных Департамента мониторинга прогнозирования чрезвычайных ситуаций. На этом слайде по цветовой гамме визуально можно определить зоны, наиболее подверженные опасным природным процессам. По статистическим данным, анализам по чрезвычайных ситуациях выявлено, что наибольшую опасность для населения и объектов инфраструктуры представляют за собой это оползневые процессы. На этом слайде указан пример, который сошедший оползень в селе Аюсай в Узгенском районе, который сошел 29 апреля 2017 года. Общим объемом предполагается 200 тысяч кубических метров. Также на территории республики сильно подвержена селевым и паводковым процессам. В среднем ежегодно происходит около 70 чрезвычайных ситуаций, связанных с этими явлениями, что составляет 30% от общего числа чрезвычайных ситуаций. Исследование и оценка причин случаев селевых потоков – это вот происходит из-за сильных дождей, которые могут резко поднять уровень воды в горных реках и ручьях, что часто приводит к размыву почвы и селевым потокам. Паводки могут случиться из-за длительных и интенсивных осадков, таяния снега, повышения уровня грунтовых вод, а также из-за сброса воды из водохранилища плотин. Также на территории республики в настоящее время выделено 368 озер, которые в разные периоды своего развития были отнесены к природоопасным и занесены в каталог природоопасных озер Кыргызстана. В целях мониторинга природоопасности высокогорных озер с 2009 по 2023 года проводятся регулярные ежегодные аэровизуальные и наземные обследования территории Кыргызстана. На этом слайде прорывы озер за разные периоды времени. К примеру, во второй части для осуществления повышения устойчивости к рискам стихийных бедствий создана поддержка Всемирного банка единая система комплексного мониторинга прогнозирования чрезвычайной ситуации. Также разработан веб-портал СКМП с платформой данных, предназначенной для поддержки Министерства чрезвычайных ситуаций, создания национальной информационной системы. Созданы мобильные пункты мониторинга, Центр мониторинга и прогнозирования чрезвычайных ситуаций, который укомплектован с самим автотранспортным средством для оперативного мониторинга и обследования природных процессов укомплектованы такими специальным оборудованием, как портативный компьютер, мобильные метеостанции, GNSS оборудование, беспилотное летательное оборудование. На этом слайде пример применения геоинформационных систем, которые по результатам обследования приводятся к результатам. Ну и также департаментом мониторинга выпускаются прогнозные материалы по результатам полевых обследований, прикладных исследований участков развития опасных природных процессов. И ежегодно издает прогнозный материал и направляет инстанциям для принятия мер по защите населения и объектов от возможных угроз чрезвычайной ситуации. На этом я заканчиваю свою презентацию и в заключение хотел бы отметить, что изменение климата является одной из самых значительных проблем, с которыми сталкивается наш мир. И во всем мире увеличивается количество опасных процессов природного и техногенного характера. К этому перед природой мы, конечно, бессильны, но мы должны быть готовы к изменениям, которые она приносит. Готовность к адаптации инфраструктурных и коммунальных систем к новым климатическим условиям, развитие технологий и снижение выбросов парниковых газов, усиление международного сотрудничества и обмена опытом в борьбе с изменением климата, внимание к посвящению и вовлечению общества. Также совместные усилия и решительные действия помогут смягчить последствия изменения климата и адаптироваться к новым условиям. Пользуясь случаем, хочу поблагодарить всех партнеров, Всемирный банк, GIZ, Азиатский банк развития и многие других организаций за сотрудничество и поддержку. Спасибо большое за внимание.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Sateyev. That concludes our panelists, and it looks like the signing ceremony is about to start. So I want to give a couple of just key closing remarks to wrap that up and to wrap up our panel. First, I want to thank all of our participants for their time coming out here to provide some of their expertise and experiences with us. And to highlight a couple of the key, I think, through lines and lessons learned from all of these different types of approaches, which shows that I think despite the large number of projects that are addressing a lot of the issues related to climate change from a number of different angles, first, I think there's a couple of kind of key lessons learned and through lines from this. The first is that really bottom-up approaches and are incredibly important, and including local knowledge and local expertise from the ground is a critical aspect of addressing climate change, which really feeds into needing to address local level concerns at their core. Instead of necessarily always taking a very top-down kind of one-size-fits-all approach, and really addressing and understanding the ecosystems that we intervene in and try to support. The next and another key issue is really the cross-cutting nature that climate change has, both with climate change, natural disasters, and natural resource management. This is really a nexus and requires a cross-cutting nexus approach. At the moment, governments are drafting really the third round of the NDCs, like we talked about, and there's a need to incorporate climate adaptation resources for climate adaptation for the national adaptation plans. And these kind of nexus issues need to be considered and integrated as part of that. And I think the importance of really bringing in outside expertise, both at national, at local level, and really understanding, bringing in that knowledge both from outside at national and local level is very important and key for addressing some of these issues and improving climate resilience throughout Central Asia. With that, I want to thank everyone for their time. We're now moving to the much awaited coffee break. During this time, there will be a signing ceremony behind you between CESDRR and Karak for their MOU. So please, obviously, coffee is very important, but please be here to attend the signing ceremony. Thank you very much for your time.